Hi, this is Phil Borders. I'm a psychiatrist at Hendricks Therapy, and recently I listened to a lecture by a Dr. Tim McIntyre, who's a psychiatrist in Toronto. And Dr. McIntyre was able to help me look at depression a little bit differently, which I found to be kind of amazing because I've been doing this forever, and I've heard talks on depression over and over and over, and it's usually repeating the same old thing. But Dr. McIntyre had a chance to help me look at depression a little bit differently. Now, a lot of times we look at depression and we think of it as a mood disorder, which it is. But Dr. McIntyre's premise is that not only is it a mood disorder, it's really a disorder in thinking, in cognition. And it's that causes a lot of the functional impairment where people have difficulty doing things, working, interacting, that causes much of the disability from depression and causes a lot of lost income and days off work, as opposed to the emotional component. Not saying the emotional component is not important, but the cognitive impairment appeared to be more important as far as a functioning level. And especially in today's society where we work, and so much of our work now is thinking. It's even having a greater impact on economics when people have depression. Now, if you look at the symptoms of depression, you have depressed mood, you have depressed affect, which is basically how somebody appears, sleep disturbance, appetite disturbance, energy is decreased. People with depression feel hopeless, helpless, worthless, but they also have poor concentration. Now, poor concentration is just kind of like thrown in there, but that seems to be where a lot of the functional impairment, and Dr. McIntyre's premise was that the poor concentration is really a deficit in cognition. Now, cognition, again, is basically how our brain thinks. And there's 4 domains in cognition. There's the executive functioning, and that's where, that's our brain's secretary, which tells us that, we have a meeting today at 7, your wife's birthday's tomorrow. It's not a really good idea to throw that out the window. Don't yell at the cop. It's what helps us regulate through, everyday life. Another domain of cognition is processing speed. Third domain is memory, and then also attention. Now, when people have a depressed brain, their brain is not functioning cognitively as it should. And when someone has really bad depression, they likened it to someone who has a blood alcohol level of 0.08%, which is legally intoxicated. So somebody who has significant depression, that shows how difficult it is for them to function. So they could have a significant improvement, like they're not crying as much, they're not feeling so hopeless, but they still might have some lingering cognitive issues, especially since that's one of the last things to get better. Also, what was a little bit distressing is, if somebody has repeated depressions, it's hard on your memory, it's hard on the brain. And for every episode of depression, it's been shown to have about a 2 to 4% decrease in ability to remember things. So another reason to aggressively treat depression. People who are obese, people who have diabetes have been shown to have, more cognitive issues. Again, slower processing speed, difficulties with memory, difficulties with executive functioning, difficulties with attention, compared to people without diabetes and without obesity. People who have those disorders can also have a higher likelihood of having depression, and you throw depression on top of their metabolic problems, then it not only adds to it, it actually multiplies one with the other in causing cognitive issues. So what do you do about all this stuff? First of all, if somebody has depression, you got to make sure they're sleeping better. If people are sleep deprived, they don't think near as well. Exercise, helping them control their diabetes is real significant. Weight loss and antidepressants actually can have a positive effect. There's two antidepressants. There's Trintellix and there's Cymbalta that can, regardless of how they treat depression, can help thinking. So just say you took Cymbalta or Trintellix and it didn't help your depression at all, it could very well still help you think better. So independent of the ability to help depression, those two medications can help with cognition. Now the Cymbalta was shown to help with memory, where the Trintellix, and I'm going to sound like a Trintellix sales rep here, but it can help not only with memory, attention, processing speed, but also executive functioning. It helped with all four of those domains independent of how it helped with depression. And that was a really interesting finding. So again, depression, one way to look at it is not just a mood disorder, but it's a disorder of cognition, a disorder of thinking. And that's where a lot of your impairment can come from. And that's why we really need to treat it and treat it aggressively. Hope this was helpful and talk to you later.